This remote fishing town of nearly 800 people has one of the most spectacular settings in the world.
We're lucky to live where we are. We have this beautiful country, we've got gorgeous geography, bountiful fish.
That's only part of what makes King Cove, Alaska, a special place.
King Cove is a great little town and great people.
Our ancestors have lived here for thousands of years.
The mostly Aleut community is about 650 miles from Anchorage. It's accessible only by plane or boat, when the weather cooperates.
Some of the geography lends itself to these severe winds we have.
Winds as high as 100 miles an hour can ground airplane travel in and out of King Cove and make traveling by boat very dangerous. Transporting patients during medical emergencies is nearly impossible in bad weather.
I was told by a doctor I had double pneumonia.
Seward Brandell and his family will never forget one particular day in 2006.
I came down to the house here that morning, which was April 2nd, my birthday. And I seen Dad sit in a chair. He wasn't looking very good.
There was that nagging thought that, okay, if we don't get him out, there's a possibility that this gentleman will crash and burn. And crash and burn to me means we're going to lose him here.
Nurse practitioner Jay Geikema decided to have Seward medevaced out despite the bad weather. Planes were grounded. There is no road access to Cold Bay's all-weather airport. Traveling by boat was the only option.
So I called my friend Boomer, which lives next door. We grew up together. And he says, yeah, we'll go.
The trip to Cold Bay was rough.
I was scared, is he going to live till, to get him there the way his breathing was.
Didn't want to get Seward into any bouncing around situation.
I still can visualize him. I mean, seas crashing over the bow, just slamming up against the window of the vessel where you wouldn't see anything.
So I was laying in a bunk and I had to hang on the bunk, and I had the oxygen tank. I had to hang on that so it wouldn't fall up. And we were rolling quite a bit, and my wife was hanging on to me,
After 3 long hours, the crew, passengers, and the patient made it to Cold Bay.
I went in and told Dad, I says, you got to walk, you got to make it to that ladder, and we'll get you up there. I'll be right behind you.
And just prior to that, a couple of months, I had a soldier operation, and I could barely hang on a ladder.
I said, one more step, Dad, one more step. I said, grab that now.
And I was very, very weak.
He's my father, I love him. And I wasn't going to let nothing happen to him. I was going to get him up to the ladder, all it took.
Finally, Seward made it up to the top. He was then flown to Anchorage.
It's not right. Nobody should have to go through that, being that sick, and also being elderly.
Since 1979, 11 people have died while flying between the two communities in poor weather. Getting authorization to build a road from King Cove to Cold Bay has been a battle for decades.
It is frustrating.
In 1980, without consulting the indigenous Aleut people, the federal government designated a major portion of the land that lies between the two communities as wilderness.
And they designated this wilderness, and it isolated our community completely from the rest of the world.
And the impact of it has been, it's horrible.
In 1998, King Cove tried to get a road through legislation. Environmental groups opposed it. As a compromise, Congress appropriated funds for improvements to the medical clinic, airport, and a marine transportation system link between the two cities.
We had 10 minutes to decide to either accept or reject the deal that was negotiated. We had the broadest outline of what the deal was and didn't find out until several days later that every part of that deal was nuanced by the people negotiating it.
Funding for the clinic was not enough and did not include a full-time doctor. Patients with serious medical conditions still had to fly to Anchorage. The Marine Link, the hovercraft, has been expensive to build and operate. With its onboard technology, including radar and GPS, the hovercraft can operate safely when aircraft are grounded. However, the vessel has other limitations.
We are not departing if the winds are 30 or if they're forecast to be 30 or above during the time the hovercraft is in flight.
In addition, the vessel is projected to generate an annual operating deficit of nearly $500,000.
but we're not going to be able to afford it for very long, and then we're not going to have access.
Lacking a long-term solution, Alaska's congressional delegation introduced legislation in June 2007. The bill would add more than 61,000 acres of key wildlife habitat to the Eisenbeck National Wildlife Refuge.
Those lands are of high habitat value. Not only do we know that, but we have people from Fish and Wildlife who basically say, yes, those lands are of equal value.
In exchange, King Cove would get a single-lane gravel road through the refuge to Cold Bay. But environmental groups claim building a road in the wilderness would set a precedent.
There were roads there from World War II.
We figured there was 40 miles of roads on that refuge system.
Despite the challenges, residents are hopeful about the future. They're optimistic Congress will choose the common-sense solution.
I hope this road could go through. I have 21 grandchildren, and I don't want them to go through what I went through. And their kids, when they get big, we need a road. We need a road badly.